What's going on, everyone? We spent the last 2 weeks reviewing a couple of AMD 4000 series powered laptops here on the channel and especially on the site. In this video though, we'll look at how the ASUS TUF Gaming A15, currently the best value offer in this AMD lineup, compares to one of the best Intel-based models, the popular Acer Predator Helios 300. For the AMD side, we're including two configurations, one built on a Ryzen 5 and a GTX 1660 Ti platform, and another built on a Ryzen 7 and RTX 2060 90W platform. While for the Predator, we're only including the higher tier configuration with the Intel Core i7 processor and the RTX 2060 80W GPU, as we haven't tested the 1660 Ti model. All the results are based on our own reviews. Before we get to talk about the performance and thermals and noise levels in daily use and demanding loads and games, let's quickly touch on a few other aspects of these laptops. Oh, and please take a moment to hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, it makes a huge difference for our small channel. First off, the Predator is mostly the more premium looking of the two here with its aluminum made lid cover and interior. In comparison, the TUF series gets a brushed plastic interior and two choices for the exterior. The grey one is metallic, while this black one is plastic and shows smudges much easily. Still, the dark aluminum on the Predator is even more prone to smudges and finger oil. The Predator also gets an obnoxious blue backlit logo on the lid cover flanked by two blue bars, while the ASUS models, especially the grey version, are simpler and easier to get accepted in strict business or school environments. On the other hand, Acer did a better job at keeping the interior design clean, as they went with a plain piece of metal for the main deck and pushed the status LEDs to the sides. ASUS went with a couple of different textures for their plastic construction, with the LEDs placed beneath the screen and with an always lit power button, both annoying when watching a movie at night. Finally, the Predator gets a sharp front lip and pointy corners, which can bite into your wrists on a smaller desk, while these are blunted and friendlier on the TUFs. Now, despite the different choices in materials, both laptops feel sturdy and well made, with little flex in the main chassis and some flex in the lid. The screens can be easily lifted up and adjusted with a single hand on both of these and go back to about 145 degrees. They also get small bezels all around with hefty chins underneath and cameras and mics at the top. Overall, the Predator is marginally more compact than the TUFs, but also a bit heavier by about 100 grams. Flipping the laptops upside down, both get a hard plastic D-panel with grippy rubber feet, bottom firing speakers, and a couple of intake cuts. The back is more open on the Predator though, which allows for more air to get in, but that also means dust will gather inside easier. ASUS went with a different approach that restricts air admission through smaller cuts in this honeycomb grid, and they also take air in through the grill at the top of the keyboard. Both laptops push out the hot air through the back and through the sides. They get different thermal designs though, as you can see here. Acer went with a symmetrical layout for the CPU and GPU, and that means radiators and exhausts are on both laterals, while ASUS went with a simpler design for the GPU part and only uses a lateral exhaust for the GPU on its right edge. This aspect impacts the CPU and GPU temperatures, which we'll touch on in a bit, but also the I/O layout. The TUFs get most of the ports on the left side, with the PSU and LAN tucked out of the way on the back, while the Predator spreads the ports on both sides but pushes them towards the front, which means that the PSU, the LAN adapter, and especially the HDMI cable on the right edge could get in your way if you decide to hook up an external monitor. In conclusion, the Predator is the nicer feeling and looking of the two if you don't mind that logo on the lid. But the TUFs are well built as well and slightly more practical, with the friendlier edges and the more conveniently placed I/O on the left side. That's why I'd say this section is mostly a toss-up between the two. What do you think? These laptops are mostly on par when it comes to their inputs as well. Both get similar keyboard layouts with full-size keys and smaller numpad sections. The difference is in the top row of function keys, with more dedicated keys on the Predator, as well as in the arrows design, which are larger but cramped on the Predator, and smaller but better spaced out on the TUFs. Overall, I do prefer Acer's layout a bit more. However, I enjoy typing on the TUF A15s a little more. Both keyboards are somewhat shallow and spongy, but the keys on the Predator actuate too easily for my liking, so are more unforgiving and prone to errors. It's important to mention that this Predator is 1 year old now, and has seen a lot of action during this time, while the TUFs are brand new, so there's a good chance the two will feel the same once the keys break in. I also prefer the touchpad on the ASUS models. They went with an immovable plastic surface and dedicated click buttons, while Acer went with a standard plastic clickpad. That's slightly larger in size, but the clicks are stiffer and clunkier, and the surface rattles louder with taps. The Predator wins when it comes to the screens though. On paper, the two get similar 15-inch Full HD IPS-like 144Hz displays, but in reality the AU Optronics panel on the Predator is brighter, richer, offers wider viewing angles and faster response times. Contrast is about on par between the two, but the Predator's panel is not as uniform and more prone to light bleeding around the edges. Keep in mind that the illustration we're including here is for the 60Hz panel on the ASUS A15, so in reality the perceived brightness difference between the two is slightly smaller. That's why the richer colors and the faster response times are the key aspects that set these panels apart. Nicer colors make for a more pleasant daily use experience, while the faster response helps reducing ghosting in games. For what it's worth, ghosting didn't really bother me that much on the A15, but it's something to consider if you're playing shooters or other such fast-paced games. On the same note, the A15s include adaptive sync, which eliminates tearing, while VSync is the only such option for the Predator, which, as you know, adds in a small amount of lag. However, I don't think tearing should weigh much in your decision on a 140Hz screen anyway. Okay, with this out of the way, let's touch on this laptop's performance. Here are the exact configurations we're including here, the mid and top spec versions for the ASUS TUF Gaming A15s, and the top variant for the Acer Predator Helios 300. Both get dual channel RAM and SSD storage, but with faster RAID support on the Predator, which can impact certain activities. The hardware is easily accessible on the two by removing the back panel, and inside both offer 2 memory slots and 2 M.2 PCIe X4 SSD slots. The Predator also includes a 58Wh battery and a hard drive cage, while ASUS offered the A15s in 2 versions, one without the hard drive and a 90W battery, and one with a hard drive cage and a 48Wh battery. The former is mostly what you'll get in the higher spec configuration, in which case the TUF models end up with a larger battery but only M.2 storage. Both laptops also offer a few different power profiles, some designed to favor lower noise for daily use, and some designed to favor performance over everything else. We've run our tests on this high performance mode, which increased the CPU's power allocation and overclocked the GPUs. Acer also undervolts the Predator Helios 300 by default at a minus 125 mV on its extreme power setting. We're only going to include a few benchmark results here, and more detailed tests are available on the site. However, keep in mind that our Predator Helios is an early edition from 2019, that's why it only runs on an 8th gen processor, while most retail units run on a 9th gen Intel i7-9750H, which returns 3–5% improved results in some of the CPU tests. That's why we've also included an i7-9750H configuration in here from one of our other reviews, so you'll better understand what to expect. Nonetheless, the 8-core Ryzen 7 4800H massively outperforms any of the Intel i7s in multi-threaded tests, and comes on top in most single-core tests as well. At the same time, the 6-core Ryzen 7 4600H wins by 10–20% in multi-core loads, and marginally loses to the 9th gen i7 in single-core loads. These notebooks also do a great job of maintaining consistent performance across longer demanding loads, as simulated by our Cinebench multi-loop test, which means the thermal modules can keep the hardware within good operational temperatures and throttling never occurs. Nonetheless, the CPU and GPU in the A15s run slightly hotter on both of the tested configurations. That's mostly going to be a concern when it comes to gaming. First, here's what to expect in terms of average frame rates in a couple of different titles, both modern and older. We've also thrown in an Intel GTX 1660 Ti configuration for comparison to the lower tier A15. Feel free to pause and look at the data closely, and make sure to check out the extended logs and details in our written reviews of these laptops. I've linked them in the description. Now, based on these findings, an 8-core processor doesn't help much with these titles, but it should scale up in the future with better multi-threaded support from new launches. Furthermore, the 90W RTX 2060 configuration of the TUF A15 trades blows with the 80W 2060 in the Predator, and that's partially because it is overclocked slightly higher in the Helios on the extreme profile, which is allowed by its better thermals. Here's how these laptops do in terms of CPU and GPU temperatures in Far Cry 5 and in Witcher 3. As mentioned before, the Helios 300 has a small edge on the AMD based configurations while being overclocked higher and running quieter, and in my opinion that's mostly thanks to the superior thermal design implemented by Acer here. All these games are running on the turbo or the extreme settings with the fans set on auto. That translates in noise levels of around 48–50 dB at head level on the ASUS laptops, and only about 40–45 dB on the Predator, which is significantly quieter. However, the Predator's metallic interior reaches higher temperatures in the mid to high 40s, while the plastic A15s run cooler by 3–7 degrees, so are more comfortable to game on for long periods of time. At the same time, Acer allows to push the fans to a turbo setting, which further reduces the CPU and GPU temperatures by a couple of degrees, but ramps the fans to 54–55 dB, rendering the laptop pretty much unusable without some good headphones. In all fairness though, you'll probably want to use headphones with any of these laptops when playing games, as the included speakers aren't that good. The sound is slightly richer on the A15s, which get larger speakers, but don't expect much on either of them. The headphone output is okay though, in both cases, as far as my ears can tell. Before we wrap this up, we should also touch on the battery life, which is clearly a win for the ASUS TUF models on the 90W battery configurations. Expect 3 to 5 hours of daily use and 8 to 10 hours of video from these, and only about 2 to 3 hours of multitasking and 4 to 5 of video on the Predator. Okay, so which is the better laptop here? Well, there's actually no easy answer, as you have to consider what you primarily want from your laptop and also how much each sells for in your region. Drawing the line on these two, you've seen that each have their strong points and their quirks. However, the A15s clearly win at the performance in demanding loads due to those competent AMD platforms, as well as at battery life, but they lose to the Predator at two key elements, which is screen and thermal behavior. Both of these are crucial if you're primarily after a gaming laptop, that's why the Predator is still the one to get in this case for matching configurations and pricing. Right now though, the TUF Gaming A15 models retail at a lower price, both for the GTX 1660 Ti and the RTX 2060 models. The Predator is normally listed for $100 to $300 or euros more, but at the same time it is also an older product and occasionally available on sale, and that might push the balance in its favor as long as it ticks all the other right boxes for you. That pretty much wraps up this video. Thanks for watching and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. I'd also love to hear what you think about these notebooks and which one is your pick, so please leave your comments down below. Oh, and yeah, subscribe to our channel to get notified when we publish new content. Catch you later.